One of the saddest things about this time period, especially with funerals, has been the isolation, of course, that the family feels at a time when they especially need comfort and hugs and people around them. And as a priest, it's been difficult because we can't go up and embrace the people as we would normally. But one of the more disturbing incidents that occurred early on in the COVID was at an area cemetery where a woman who had passed away, a very lovely and dear woman and with great grace and dignity, had passed, and we conducted the funeral in the funeral home early on because the church wasn't prepared for receiving anybody because of the strict limitations at the time. And after we conducted the funeral, we went out to an area cemetery, and the indignity that was shown was unbelievable. They would not allow the family to get out of their cars. They made the hearse stop in the middle of the road, and they had a crane bring the vault over and drop the vault behind the hearse, and then they had the crane literally, they hooked a casket up to it and lowered it into the vault in the middle of the road. They wouldn't even take the body to the grave, which was about 50, 60 yards away. And it was just a very undignified and sad thing to see. And the only one allowed near was myself, and to offer the final prayers. And I had to do so in a way that I couldn't even stand near the casket, but I had to stand between the casket and the cars and basically shout out the prayers so the family could hear the prayers for their mother. And it was just an exceptionally sad thing, and it was just really mishandled so horribly, but it reflected, of course, the fear that everyone had early on during the COVID. But it just reminded us how fragile life is, and that need for our ability as human beings to not be isolated from each other, but to be able to embrace and love each other, especially at a time of loss, when that love of God is needed most through human contact. During the time period, early on, we would conduct the funerals in the funeral homes because they were more well equipped with disinfectant and ability to socially distance people. And we would conduct a funeral there, where traditionally in the Orthodox Church we conduct the funerals in the church. But after a little while, and the COVID protocols were developed by our metropolis, by our church leaders, and in conjunction with the lawyers and doctors, we were able to once again have funerals within the church. But even that was and still is limited to the number of people we could allow. In the beginning, it was just immediate family, limiting it to 10 people. And that kind of, again, offered a sense of isolation and not the community that you need at a time of loss with your loved ones. But it still was much better than conducting in a funeral home, because we were able to at least bring our loved ones into Christ's home, into God's home, and be able to offer the service as is traditionally in the church. Since then, things have improved, and of course, with the numbers being elevated, we're able to have more and more people, but we still have a sense of social distancing within the church. I see the future will regain normalcy, but I think just like after 9/11, there will always be that sense of the immediate future will be that concern and those precautions taken. And as we get further and further away from the pandemic, we'll go back to our old ways and normal ways. But just like 9/11, there remains remnants of it, like the TSA and everything. I believe there always remain remnants from the pandemic, whether it be people wearing masks voluntarily or that sense of heightened awareness. And it'll take a while for us to get back to normal, but I believe we will get back to that, as that cliche and a term that doesn't always make sense to me, the new normal, but we will get there eventually.